Hey, everybody, and welcome to the second episode. Holy hell, can you believe it? We made it to the second episode of the Movie Meatloaf podcast. I'm your host, Josh Stifter, and this week's episode, Daniel and I will be diving into the Robert Rodriguez classic grindhouse picture that is From Dusk Till Dawn. Vampires, family matters, and all sorts of crazy shenanigans go on. George Clooney in one of his masterful roles, one of his first masterful roles, and you'll hear more about that as the Doctor and the Geek hit the road. You'll get that in a second. But remember, this is a commentary podcast, so if you want to check it out, From Dusk Till Dawn is now on Shudder. If you have Shudder, if you have a subscription to Shudder, you can listen to or watch the movie as you listen to the podcast, and it all plays together. You just have to wait till the end of the theme song when I say play. You hit the play button and you get going, so I'll give you a second to hop over there, set it up, get it ready on the Dimension logo at the beginning, and then hit play right as we go. Honestly, you don't have to. The episode works on its own. If you've seen the movie, you're good to go. So I also just want to remind you guys to check out Flush Studios Patreon, flushstudios.com/Patreon, for more information, or for the behind the scenes of how Daniel and I make our movies, to find out what we're doing next, and all of the other fun shit that Flush Studios does. It's all on the Patreon. So subscribe for $5 a month, or $1 a month even, is enough to get you most of the content. So go subscribe today. Help me make more cool Flush Studios content. So without further ado, we'll start the episode. Wait till the end of the theme song and hit play right as I say play if you want it to play along with it. Otherwise, just enjoy the show.
Shoot up a couple microphones and movie Meatloaf that we go. Movie Meatloaf podcast. It's gonna be a goddamn podcast. Just gonna beep in the movie now. Let's get it all queued up. This motherfucker's about to start in 3, 2, 1.
Play. All right, and welcome to the Movie Meatloaf podcast. I'm your host, Josh Stifter, and I'm joined by
Daniel Degnan.
Daniel Degnan.
Daniel Degnan.
Here to talk about a little movie called From Dusk Till Dawn.
Yes.
When was the first time you saw this movie? I like starting with that question because it's.
Right.
I remember the first time I watched this movie, actually. Toxic Avenger, maybe I don't remember the date, but I remember the date. It was May 6th. 2003. No, it wasn't that.
Here's the thing we established from the first episode, the inaugural episode. That's a great question, but I don't remember anything from my childhood.
But I didn't see this in my childhood.
I don't remember anything. I can't tell you when I saw this movie, and I was going to start with this story because I don't know when I saw it, where I was, how I even fell into it.
Okay.
But
before you tell that story, I've got to call this out. Mm-hmm. I owe almost all of my success at this point that I've received to that man right there.
Oh, sure.
Michael Parks.
Yeah.
I seriously had being able to do that animation with his voice. Mm-hmm. I did a cartoon called Other Fish with Josh Roush, who was assistant to Michael Parks on the movie Tusk.
Yeah.
And Josh was like, hey, do you want to do an animation with me? Because I worked on the movie Tusk. He liked my animation and asked me if I wanted to do this weird animation based on his girlfriend at the time's now wife, her dream.
Right.
I was like, that sounds cool. Yeah, I'll work on that. And he's like, and the cool thing is I think we can get Michael Parks to do a voice.
Yeah.
And his pitch to me was a woman goes swimming with her, or tries to swim a channel with her daughter paddling behind and gets attacked by a shark. And I'm like, so is Michael Parks the shark? I don't really get what's going on. He's like, no, we can make a grandpa character or something. So we wrote the whole 2-story element where it jumps back and forth.
Yeah.
For those who haven't seen it, it jumps back and forth between the past and the present.
Yep.
So that grandpa character was just based around the fact that we had Michael Parks and we ran with it. Yeah. And he fucking knocks it out of the parks.
Wow.
Goddamn hot, miserable shit-ass fucking
That was
lady,
not
Rachel.
intentional. I got halfway through knocks it out, and I was
wow.
I gotta stop. I gotta turn around, and I just kept talking, and now I am red in the face.
Wow, too fucking soon.
So, anyway, I sent that. The only reason I sent Tim the Terrible to El Rey Network was because I was trying to get Other Fish to Robert.
Sure, yeah.
And I sent both of them in because I'm like, well, I've got these two things. They're more likely to see it if I send them both in.
Yeah.
And they picked up Tim the Terrible. And my whole fucking career now is based on that one email sent based on having Michael Parks' performance.
Yeah, that's wild.
So, like, I see Michael Parks. I mean, also the Tusk thing. You know, I did the animation for him for that, which he really enjoyed, which is how we got the animation. So it all kind of stems back from... Nothing is just like, this man made my career. But I definitely owe something to Michael Parks.
Right. Everything comes back to Parks. Strangely enough, yeah.
And he, the first time I saw this movie, I knew nothing about any of these people. I barely knew who Clooney was. I'd seen him, because I've never even seen that Batman movie. And at this point, Clooney, I probably knew him best as the dog barks in South Park.
Sure.
Like, I seriously didn't know Clooney from anyone. Like, I didn't know who Clooney was, besides I knew who he was, but I didn't watch anything with him.
Yeah. I would say from what I remember, I'm positive that I thought of Tarantino more as an actor than a director.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, right.
I was not at all familiar with Tarantino, the famous director, just the guy.
Well, but we were kids. Like, those movies were coming out in the 90s when we were 10 years old, and the only thing my mom said was, you can't watch Pulp Fiction until you're 18. Right. So I had no idea I knew who Tarantino was. He was a hero of mine. Yeah. But visually, I wouldn't be like, that's the guy. But I knew him as an actor from this and Desperado, because my dad let me watch Desperado.
Right. Yep. Yeah, Desperado. That's a funny story, too, the Pulp Fiction one, because my earliest Tarantino story is seeing Reservoir Dogs at a video store, and my grandfather was like, oh, that movie's trash. You don't ever watch it.
Really?
Yeah. Like, my grandpa was huge into going to movies, like, all the time. He'd see a movie, like, a night, an evening, especially in the 90s, early aughts. And so... yeah, he must have seen Reservoir Dogs in theaters and just loathed the thing.
And my parents did the exact opposite.
He's a true hero.
Not with Reservoir Dogs, but with Pulp Fiction, where people don't remember this because Pulp Fiction is considered like a masterpiece now. Like, no one would call Pulp Fiction like a piece of shit.
Right.
But when that movie came out, people hated it. Like, people walked out of the theaters. They just were like done with it.
Yeah.
And my parents went and saw it. People walked out of the theater while it played.
Right.
Remember scratching, and if I did scratch, it's not because I was signaling the cop. It's because I'm fucking scared shitless.
My mom and dad got out and were like,
your mom was not a fan.
No, they loved it.
Oh.
They were like, that was really good. Don't tell anyone we liked it.
Tell people we liked it.
Exactly. They just couldn't talk about it. So they came home, and I, being me, I was 10 years old or whatever, and I was like, what'd you guys think of the movie? Was it really good?
Yeah.
And they were like, we really liked it. Don't tell anyone we liked it.
Yeah. This family will not be known as the
Pulp
family.
Fiction
The
family.
Pulp Fiction family.
And I just, like, I have this vague memory, but also very, like, specific, that at one point my dad made a GIMP joke at the dinner table based on having seen Pulp Fiction like a week before, and my mom just like...
I can imagine.
Yeah, of course, yeah, right. And my mom, of course, screamed at it.
Like, Jeff, no GIMP stories at the table!
Stop with the GIMP stories!
Enough with the GIMP!
That's a terrible impression of my mom.
Jeff, enough with the GIMP.
Oh my God, that's even worse.
Yeah, it was worse.
Christ. You bucking for early retirement?
It was surprising.
So, this is what I was going to say.
Yeah.
Earl McGraw dies right there.
Yep.
And I remember watching this the first time and being so mad. Because his performance is great in that first scene. And I instantly was just like into that character.
Iconic, yeah.
And watching it, I was like, what? I'm going to watch
I know.
this geeky dude and ER.
And the doctor. Doctor and the Geek.
Oh, I'd watch Doctor and Geek. If they do that.
Well, not as a kid, apparently, but you've come around to it.
If they bring back From Dusk Till Dawn for another season and I get to direct an episode, I want it called The Doctor and the Geek. Doctor and the Geek.
Oh, fantastic. That's a great name. That's a great name for an episode.
It is a great episode name.
Yeah.
If you were going through
You just
direct
pepper in that
TV.
line. The Gecko brothers go to like some drug lord or something, and he's like so,
Yeah,
demeaning.
Doctor and the Geek. Yeah,
It's like, what's this? What do we got? What do we have here? The Doctor and the Geek.
yeah, right. I love it.
Boom.
Except it's not played by them, so it really doesn't make sense.
Nah, it
Although
totally does.
it works,
They
people
still
would
look
still
like
get it.
Doctor
They
and
do
the
still
Geek.
look like that. So
The Geek is much beefier in the series, but it's still a geek.
he is. Fun fact: those this scene right here. Robert
The
actually
shootout?
told the shootout. Robert told me about this. How he used these close-ups because it's actually only 2 aisles long, and he wanted them to be yelling to each other.
Yep.
So he just shot it in an interesting way. But they're actually like 2 feet from each other right there.
So good.
But they're supposed to be on like other sides
Other
of the
sides
thing.
of
They're
the
not
whole
because there's not enough room for them
convenience
to be
store.
other sides.
Yeah, genius. Robert, you've done it again.
And I also learned a lesson watching this movie because I watched this right before I went to Rebel. And one thing I really learned and used, not even sparingly, I used it quite a bit, is you can cut from a medium to just a slightly closer medium if it's the right moment.
Yeah.
So I do it a lot when you're like shooting the teddy bear.
Yep.
It's like the same shot. I just bounce
Right.
in like a little bit, or
Right.
like I just move it around, and that was learned from this and
Yeah.
how
That's a lot.
Rodriguez directed this scene. What a awesome fire! Like that
Right.
just looks amazing.
Yeah. You don't see a fire that good. It's, the fire from Toxic Avenger was just pales in comparison. That is a true man on fire.
And again, it's the way it's edited and shot. The Toxic Avenger is one shot of him running. This, they probably had 2 or 3 cameras shot up. He shoots it like an action movie, which is what he's the best at.
Right. Crushed it.
I don't know if I said this already, but that tattoo that Clooney has was Clooney's idea.
Oh, yeah. You did not.
I think that's awesome that that's Clooney's idea.
Clooney, he's got good ideas.
And I
I heard that ER wasn't even supposed to be about doctors, and that was all Clooney's idea.
But I also heard that Clooney wanted a tattoo on his neck in ER, and they told him no.
They said, okay, Clooney, you got one, okay? It's the tattoo or the doctors. You can't have both.
Shooting police. It is not setting fire to a building.
That is like one of my favorite intros, though, too. Just
It's
in
a
a film.
fucking... When you
Walking out, and then the store just explodes without any, they don't give a fuck.
No. And
So
and
matter
he
of
just
fact.
talks at him like
Yeah, just
nothing
talks
happened.
at him. Oh,
Another building blew up. Oh
I
no!
love it.
I also love this
Movie
opening.
magic.
How the credits, the first names, just roll over the driveway, which is usually the end credit scene. Like we use that in
Right.
The Good Exorcist, where the drive off, and same
Yeah,
with
that's
Scarlet
true.
used it in. So many movies end with the drive off. This opens with the drive off.
drive off and the credits, yeah, and then the screen roll, yeah.
But I mean, that's kind of this movie's MO, is to be unconventional. It's 2 movies in
100%.
one. It basically puts the end credits at the beginning. It flows everything completely different.
Yep, 100%. And then car runs over the graphics, which nobody does anymore.
I know it's
And so,
it's a grindhouse movie.
Yeah.
It's funny how Robert's movies always have this grindhouse vibe to them. This one is the most grindhousey of all of his to me.
yeah,
The Hole in the Hand
Agreed.
is amazing.
Fantastic Hole in the
Special
Hand.
makeup effects by Kurtzman. That's Robert Kurtzman.
Yeah.
Who apparently hired Quentin Tarantino to write this movie.
Yeah.
And then Robert Kurtzman from, what would people know Robert Kurtzman from? He does visual effects on fucking everything.
Yeah. He's everywhere. Yeah, story about Robert Kurtzman. Look at that. Never noticed.
I love this shot. This is one of my favorite shots of the movie. Is the woman in the back of the
Yeah.
thing, which we used in
Which we
Greywood's
used in
plot.
Greywoods, yeah.
But apparently Tarantino wrote this script for Kurtzman, which was the first script Tarantino ever got paid to write.
Yeah. Wild.
$1,500,
$1,500.
which is crazy.
Damn, that's
$1,500
insane.
paid for a lot.
Right.
They've gotten series out of this thing, like
Yeah,
all
right?
just. And then he apparently also gave the script to Tony Scott, who turned
sure.
it down, which makes sense because Tony Scott did
True Romance.
True Romance, which
Yeah.
Tarantino wrote. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that whole intro is just fantastic.
It all connects. It all
that
connects.
in its own, the having Michael Parks, you kill off one of an amazing performance right away. It sets
Yep.
the pace for what this movie is and how
Yep.
unconventional it can be.
100%.
Which, I mean, that's a testament to Michael Parks and how good he is, that he's barely in the movie, and he's one of the most memorable characters of the movie.
Yeah, very true. He's definitely one of the things I remember from this movie every time.
So you were saying the first time you watched this.
Oh, I just don't remember.
Oh.
Like that was pretty much it.
Oh.
I think that asking how old we were, where we were, like our memories of these movies, it's a great question for this sort of format. But I already know 2 episodes in, I'm not gonna have a good answer ever.
So that's always going to be my go-to for the first question, and I will remember 90% of them. I bet.
I don't know why. I just don't. I thought I had not seen all of Toxic Avenger. We found out by the end of the film that I had seen all of it.
Right.
And with this one, I remember. I guess I remember the first memory I have, and I don't know if it's because I just saw half of it or if it just stuck out the most, was the Selma Hayek dance, like right when she turns into the vampire, like the transformation and then the pandemonium. That I remember, but I couldn't tell you like where I was. That's just like my earliest.
You probably saw the
memory of
trailer,
movie.
because I feel like the trailer was just Selma Hayek dancing and then a bunch of guns. So you probably saw the trailer and you're like, I have this memory of watching it.
I filled the pieces in with my dreams later. I don't know. I don't know.
So my
It's a
first
great
time
movie. I
watching
love
it was in high school.
Feels like watching it for the first time every time.
I would say that. I would say that too, though. Every time I watch it, because it's such a varied up movie, this
true.
first chunk is completely different than when Harvey Keitel gets involved, which is completely different than when they get to the titty twister.
100%.
Like, and then even in the titty twister, you have the first half of the titty twister where it's just like
them hanging out at a bar.
It's
where
people
they
who
don't
shouldn't
belong.
be in a bar hanging out at a bar they don't
yeah.
belong, followed by fucking vampires.
Yeah. No, it's very true. It's very true. This movie does what it wants. Again, great pacing, fast.
Well, that to me is okay. Grindhouse. We'll go back to this because I want to tell the first time I watched this movie.
Yes, yeah,
because
yeah.
this is going to be a running theme of a lot of these movies. I fell in love with movies our junior and senior year in high school.
Sure.
Like I liked movies a lot before that, but junior and senior year is when I figured out, number one, they sold or they rented R-rated movies from the library.
Sure.
And then 2, I didn't give a shit about getting in trouble. Because before that, if my mom and dad caught me, I'd get in trouble. Or if I got caught at ILC, which was the private school Daniel and I went to, it was like a boarding school.
Yeah.
We would...
Not as glamorous as it sounds. It was a real shithole.
A real shithole.
Where bad kids went.
It's not where bad kids went. It's where churchy kids went.
Right.
And for some reason, I ended up
But
there
no money
watching
was,
From Dusk Till Dawn.
Yeah, and no money was spent on education or facilities.
Oh, God, no.
It was a real
You guys saw
dumpster fire.
the room. It was like Toxic Avenger's basement. The basement of the workout place,
Right.
the health club, looked better than our dorms.
That's true. But
So,
yeah, you were watching
less
a lot of movies.
less red-eyed rats in Toxic Avenger. But
Right. And it was bunk beds.
It was bunk
and you were on
beds.
the top bunk
watching From Dusk Till Dawn. I was not. I
didn't know.
I watched From Dusk Till Dawn. So what I would do is...
I don't know what he did up there. He was just always up there with his movies and his stories.
Get out of this alive. I give you my word.
I did
blanket over his head.
I did. Yeah, right. No, I would watch R-rated movies on my PSP, which is actually how I found out about From Dusk Till Dawn, but I didn't have From Dusk Till Dawn.
R.I.P. PSP.
Yeah, so I found out about From Dusk Till Dawn because I fell in love with Robert Rodriguez when I realized that I bought Once Upon a Time in Mexico on PSP.
Yep.
And I would watch it
That's
just
right.
fucking over and over again. And then I
Yeah,
realized, oh, this is a sequel to Desperado, which was my dad's favorite
Right,
movie.
right. Yeah.
He'd quote the movie all the time and shit. So I was like, oh, this is awesome. I love this Rodriguez character. And so I got From Dusk Till Dawn from the library. I have this really, really vivid memory of being so nervous to rent it. Every time I rented an R-rated movie from the library, I'm like, I'm going to get in so much trouble. And they never did. They'd just be like, they
like,
put my...
Hey,
They'd put my books through that were like, I'd get like...
yeah, here's my books.
Here's my books. They're all like
and
little...
then just
they're all from
this,
the...
From Dusk Till Dawn DVD.
Yeah, just I scan it through super fast. I throw it through.
Just throw it on there. Oh, good.
It's from my grandpa.
Yeah, he loves it.
He loves vampires. But even though they wouldn't say anything about vampires on the
Grandpa loved vampires. That is for certain. But
So anyway, I got it back.
I get you.
And I would
It's-
watch movies on. We had to go to church, so I go to church on Saturday night. That's why I went to church on Saturday night, because on
That's
Sunday
why you went
morning
to
I would
church on
watch movies.
Saturday.
That's why I had church on Saturday. So
yeah, yeah.
Sunday morning no one would check because
Yeah.
you know, the dorm supervisor would come up one time. They'd check and be like, "Did you go to church yesterday?" If you were like, "Yes," they'd be like, "Okay, you're fine. Go back to bed."
Yep.
Or whatever.
Yep.
And I mean, that's even it wasn't really that strict, but it was
Yeah.
kind of like that.
No, like, well, I mean, it was like a purely conscious, like you probably could have never gone to church, but like your own guilt.
Yeah, the moral compass would
the
tell
moral
you
compass
you have to.
would be
Yeah.
just oh
We'd be crying in bed if you skipped it. I did one time. I skipped church. I lied and I
Yeah.
skipped it, and I went twice on Wednesday because I felt so bad. That's a weird kind of guilt.
times, yeah.
That's a weird kind of guilt.
America.
Beds in the home are okay, but they're not like a real bed.
Just to get back into the movie for just a second.
Yeah,
Those two kids are fucking. I mean, I know they're kids. They're fucking whatever, but they're awesome.
Great kids. I love this whole family unit. It is so.
do.
It doesn't make sense, but it does.
Because they're like, he's adopted.
They're so
kid,
mismatched.
right?
Yeah,
And
right.
Harvey Keitel lost his wife or whatever you find out, but
Right.
he also doesn't seem to really give a shit about his kids, but he really wants them around still.
Right. And isn't he like a preacher?
And he's a preacher.
He was a preacher?
He
Yeah.
was. He isn't anymore.
He isn't anymore, yeah. Just this crazy fucking arc for a guy that's like kind of not in the movie, but kind of it.
Yeah.
Just such good shit.
Well, and I think it works in a really awesome way, but part of me
Mm-hmm.
thinks Harvey Keitel showed up to set going like, I don't know what the fuck we're doing.
Yeah.
I read the script, but I don't know what you want me to be like,
Yeah.
and just kind of like, just can act his ass off through it because he doesn't even have to try in this one.
Oh, no. So
Like, you
good.
just look at his face, and he's always just like,
He's just
I'm-
Keiteling. He's just
I'm here.
Keiteling up there. He's just pulling off the hits. Just the Keitel classics.
like he never in this movie does he go full Keitel. He's always just kind of chilling and hanging out.
Right.
This was like, it wasn't a paycheck. It was just like, I like this Tarantino guy. I'm gonna come
Yeah.
out to his movie with vampires.
Well, Keitel was self-aware enough that he knew that no true father would go full Keitel. Like,
Right.
Every father does have a bit of Harvey Keitel in them, but even he has the self-referential like awareness of like most dads are like a 45 Keitel, like
Right.
45%.
Yeah.
So he like tones it down.
He never goes full like, you're not
Never
gonna
goes-
die on me.
Yeah, he never goes full Keitel. Even when vampires like show up on the scene, he
does. He keeps his cool.
He
Yeah,
keeps
he does.
like a fatherly cool.
Something to be said about that. I like that a
Yeah.
lot.
Keitel
There's something
cool.
about the undersell. You know what?
Yeah, you love
I
a good dad story.
I love a good dad story. I do. I'm such a real dad story.
Right,
When
right,
the
right.
dad becomes like, I don't want to lose my kids. Like, dumb. Because no dad would do that.
I don't think you'd ever related to a character more than the father from Us, which was real eye-opening.
right?
To, like
The
watching
father
it
from
together,
Us?
I'm like, wow, I just never thought.
The father from Us, I was 100% in.
Yes, that you were there for his journey. Everyone else was there to watch, like
an old
Lapita's journey,
a
but you were there
spirited
for
dad. Oh, dad.
You were
Dude,
there
they could have
for
got rid of
Dad's
her.
Journey.
They could have got rid of her altogether. It was just the dad and his monster dad self, and I would have
Right.
been like,
Tell me
fucking
more
movie.
about this father. Yeah,
But the other one is Rooker in Guardians of the Galaxy 2.
Right. Oh, yeah.
I was like,
Yep.
I cried like a baby.
yeah, you did. You cried like a little baby.
Any dad story can get me. It's all
speaking of, here's a newscast.
teaching us everything.
Teaching us everything.
On the Toxic Avenger episode, we talked about how you can do a passage in time and explain an entire story in a newspaper.
With a nice newspaper flip.
And I said that the news anchor will also sell it, and here
Yeah.
we are,
Yeah.
doing the news.
Yeah. And this tells you this sets up the whole thing. And it's it's a really good one too.
It is good, and that guy is
This is
wearing the
more of a
exact
good
same
example
outfit
of like
as.
mixed media. Like the
Right.
old
I'm like, and
Flush Studios mixed media.
I love it, and it comes from Tarantino.
Yeah.
And, like Tarantino and Rodriguez were
Yeah.
amazing at doing mixed
Yeah.
media ideas.
And this one specifically has a lot of Oliver Stone too, which is another. His earlier work is a great example of mixed media
right.
madness.
Right. I love it. I think when
Like
you can
Natural
pull
Born
it
Killers.
off. Yeah, right. When you can pull it off properly.
Yeah.
The thing is you can't do mixed media by forcing it into the story. And the proof in that was I felt like the first Super 8 sequence in The Good Exorcist feels like we were forcing it. We had a really great idea.
Yeah.
But the first time we did the Super 8 to tell Maria's story, we didn't have to.
Right.
The second time we see it, it really works.
Yep.
And then the fact that we call it back the third time as we're seeing his flashbacks, it makes it make sense.
Right.
But the first one, I always was like, we could have got out of it.
Yeah.
We could have got out of that mixed media halfway through it. He just drops the Super 8 down, and then we're just listening to a conversation between Maria and him.
Yeah, that's true.
So I think it's a balancing act of mixed media.
100%. Yeah, 100%. I would agree.
What do you think about... Oh, I never finished my story.
Burger.
I just got one... Oh, that is Big Kahuna Burger. That's when we see it. Big Kahuna Burger, which was first shown in Pulp Fiction,
Yep.
is in this as well. And then I think it showed up in other movies, too, didn't
Yeah,
it?
there's quite a few, I would imagine.
I assume, because Rodriguez has that Big Kahuna...
He has a lot of Big Kahuna stuff.
He does, so he must put
That
it in stuff,
troublemaker.
too. Yeah. So, for those who don't know, who are just tuning in, Daniel and I were on a Robert Rodriguez television show called Rebel Without a Crew,
The series.
the series. We made our first feature called The Good Exorcist for it, so we spent a lot of time at Troublemaker Studios.
Yeah, located
Troublemaker
in
Studios.
Austin, Texas.
Yeah, that's Robert Rodriguez's studio, and there's a ton of props from these movies,
Oh, from everything.
from everything.
Everything. He's done everything other people have done. He's got a lot of stuff. It's pretty rad.
And he's got a lot of, so that's why I don't know if he had any Big Kahuna stuff in it, or just because Steve Joyner, who makes their props,
Right,
did
maybe.
stuff for Tarantino as well. So they have a lot of Kill Bill, Hattori Hanzo swords there.
Yep. Yeah.
I would eat salad and swing Hattori Hanzo swords while talking to Steve Joyner.
What a life.
What a life. I remember sitting in that moment and thinking, wow, this is like unreal. Like, this is fucking weird. And I think some of the props, I think they're from Dusk Till Dawn, the series, but it's really hard to know what prop is what because some of them are generic.
Right.
But we were given 7 props from Robert Rodriguez's collection
Yeah.
for The Good Exorcist. And I'm pretty sure some of them are from this movie.
Yeah.
I don't
think
know
so.
which were and which weren't, but we had
I think the lighter isn't it? We had a Zippo style lighter. I
They
feel like
didn't
it's
know-
from here.
it's either from this or it's from Sin City 2. And I didn't,
okay.
I couldn't,
The Search for More Angels.
I don't know which one it was. But
Yeah. It could go
we had
either way.
props from things we didn't know.
Right. We didn't have any like iconic Tarantino
I didn't have a Hattori
glasses.
Hanzo sword.
or Tori Hanzo sword. Or Big Kahuna Burger.
I didn't have the big. He's got like this big. Robert has this big Kahuna surfboard sign.
Yeah.
That's like from the side of a truck or something, like
Yeah.
a food truck.
Though we could have. We have a scene in The Good Exorcist where Father Gill is hanging out with Maria, the I don't want to spoil anything,
Yeah, right.
but she's a main character. But the first time that they're like interacting, they like drive around and dance and just like hang out.
And it was originally the
supposed to
script
be
they were going to go buy a burger.
Go buy a burger.
Right, I forgot
We
about
coulda done
that.
we could have done a Big Kahuna Burger moment.
Shit, we totally could
We
have.
gotta go back.
The sequel. I mean the
Yeah.
remake.
The remake, yeah. The squeakquel.
The thing I think works so much about this family unit is how like quiet they are and subtle they are with each other.
Right.
Family
Yeah,
doesn't
yeah.
have to sit and talk to each other like open and honestly all the time and have these like massive conversations. Their conversations are always just like, where are we going today? Like it's just that's my
That's pretty good.
yeah, wasn't it pretty
That's
good?
pretty good Juliette Lewis.
I've been watching-
Young Juliette Lewis.
I know I've been watching What's Eating Gilbert Grape a lot.
Oh,
So
sure.
I've been,
That'll do it.
I'm in that mindset.
Juliet
Juliette
country.
Lewis style. I've been
Yeah.
I've been in the Juliet country.
Juliet Country. Wow, what a fade out.
Dude, it's quick. He
What a
knows.
just fade to the
Rodriguez
face,
can't do anything slow. He's just
Right.
like, even on my fade outs are gonna be
Yeah.
fucking speedy.
We ain't got time to rest on this moment. Yeah. No, this movie is
I've seen my dad wake up just like that before. This is a father figure if I've ever seen one.
you know him, you love him. He's your
He
dad.
kind of has my dad going on
He
too.
does kind of look
he
like
kind
your
of
dad.
does have
Without
my dad
the
vibe.
glasses, yeah.
Yeah, if you got rid of without the glasses, and if his
Harvey
beard was a
Keitel is
little
your
bit,
father, yeah.
yeah, right.
Hi, I'm from room 11.
He's good too in this.
He's
you know,
great in this.
I think that his performance in Desperado works with how cheesy that movie is, but it is really tough for me to watch now.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
all I see is Tarantino in that one.
Right.
Like, it doesn't...
That's the joke one, right? He's telling a joke.
Yeah, he tells the joke about, like, pissing all over, and he's
all
like,
over the
that
bar."
guy told me he'd give me $1,000
Yes.
if they'd let me piss all over the bar.
Yeah.
But this, I don't see Tarantino. Like,
Right.
he is a performance in this one. Mm-hmm. And I think the same thing
I
about
agree.
Planet Terror. I think in Planet
yeah,
Terror,
yeah.
where he's like the psychopath, like
Yeah. That military dude.
military dude who tries to get her to suck his like melting dick or whatever.
Yeah. Iconic.
He's wearing a Precinct 13 shirt.
Yep.
The kid is wearing a Precinct 13 shirt,
Yep.
which is
Assault on Precinct 13.
yeah, from Assault on Precinct 13,
Which Robert, big fan.
huge fan of
Romero.
no, not Romero. Fucking
Got him.
Jesus Christ, why can't
Carpenter.
Carpenter. God. He's looking at me like he's Daniel's what you guys can't see is Daniel staring me down trying to fuck with me because he knows my brain is going like a million miles a minute.
Sound it out. Romero.
I know if you hadn't said Romero, I totally would have got there too. And then I'm like, Romero.
Are you going to the mall?
Are you going to
That's what I was asking.
I never finished my story though. The dorm supervisor walked in on me watching this movie from the library.
Wow. So you got out of the library unscathed.
This happened
then
to
you
me
brought it
twice.
home and you got caught.
And I got caught, but he let me watch it. Okay. So it was at a part that wasn't that
man,
bad.
Good man. Sure.
And it was something like this, where it was just like Clooney on screen. He's like, oh, he must
like,
be watching ER.
That kid loves his ER. Hey, did Clooney get a tattoo? Must be a choice.
This show's crazy.
Must be a character choice.
Wow, that's a bold choice too. That because it's her talking directly to him because we're talking while we're listening to this, and I was like, what the fuck just happened? But that's right, he's like insane and thinks she's talking right to him. Still a cool idea to have her talk right into the camera.
Oh yeah, I love that shot too. That weird handheld pan. Mm-hmm. Like he's coming up. This was. I should say I know this most because I watched this 2 or 3 times, like right before I went down for Rebel. Yeah,
I remember.
This was one I went back to a few times because I have this on Blu-ray. So I'm like, well, shit, I'll just watch it.
And you definitely called out some things where you're like, can we do this and can we do that?
Yeah.
I don't remember the specifics of what you were like, hey, why don't we just go for it with this idea?
Yeah, I can't remember now. There was a few instances, yeah.
I definitely remember the eye patch came from one of your watches of something where you were just like, we should give her an eye patch. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think it was just, you were thinking Michelle Rodriguez at Grindhouse and stuff like that. And you were just like,
yeah, that was
can we give Maria an eye patch?
Yeah, that was a Machete call.
Yeah.
Which I also watched. But yeah, definitely at Dusk Till Dawn, there was some ideas that were pulled from this for our movie, The Good Exorcist. Just because it's, I don't know, it's good stuff.
Well, and I was going to say that earlier. I think the Keitel performance and the Father Gill performance are subtly similar, where
yeah.
you guys neither of you oversold the concept in a movie where you could oversell it in a heartbeat.
Right. In a movie that's like the sole concept is this priest. We didn't oversell the priest.
We didn't. We oversold everyone else. And that's
everyone else.
But I feel like that's why the movie, number one, works to me, but I think that's also why for some people it's confusing. Because the goofy priest who dances through the beginning, even the dance doesn't seem that goofy.
No.
Compared to the characters who...
goofy.
No, you shouldn't have. It would have been terrible. It would have totally thrown off the vibe. Because I think like when Stanley pops on screen and Mrs. Willows pops on screen and she's like, Father, thank God you're here. Like she's over the top.
Right.
It instantly gives people this like, wow, they're going big with their performances, which is what we always wanted to do.
Right.
And we kept the father subtle to ground the world a little bit. And I think that works with this. You got a dude looking through his hand. It's
Right.
not a grounded movie.
Right.
In all reality. But
True.
some of the performances... especially Keitel, really grounds it.
Yeah, no, definitely. And then the whole vampire thing brings it back down to earth.
Yeah, the vampire thing.
Sorry, not to spoil for those who are watching this for the first time.
Yeah,
with us here today.
Could you imagine if someone did watch this for the first time or listen to this before they watched the movie?
Oof, this would be a rough one. Yeah,
this would be a rough one. And I don't think there's any of them. We spoil everything.
And, right. For those who haven't seen this movie, aren't going to watch the movie, never plan to, or follow along. It doesn't start with vampires, but it very much ends with vampires.
it definitely
Quick
takes
spoiler.
It takes a 180, but I think that's what makes it feel like a grindhouse movie.
Yeah.
Which, because grindhouse movies would do stuff like that. They would save things till the end where they had the budget. Now they'd hint at them throughout. The beauty of this movie is it doesn't even hint at it. It just
go there. Yeah.
kicks it into high gear.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think that's that's what makes this work as a modern grindhouse, is because it takes that risk, because a lot of grindhouse movies in the past, like what made a grindhouse movie to me, and you could totally tell me if you think I'm wrong, but to me it was, they were made for low budgets. They were what's the word, like exploitative? They were exploitation movies that were specifically trying to exploit one idea, where it was like, this is exploiting like a black cop idea, or this was exploiting a vampire idea, or whatever. And they often had a concept that only fell into about 45 minutes of the movie, and the other 40 minutes were just fucking filler.
Right. Yeah.
And that's a good thing. That's why I like going back to Grindhouse. I feel like Tarantino's is more of a legit Grindhouse movie than Rodriguez's.
Sure.
Because Rodriguez is as fun as it is, and as much as it is an exploitation movie, it's just balls out from beginning to end.
Right.
And the old exploitation movies, they had to fill time with like people talking and shit, like stuff we're seeing right now. This is the filler time.
Right.
Now, they never had performances like this.
Right.
Like
Exactly.
in an exploitation movie, they never would even think to have one guy leaning the opposite direction, which is not comfortable in any way, I imagine, but it looks really cool.
Clooney makes it look flawless.
I know.
Much like everything he does in this movie, he just makes it look easy.
The other thing I notice about Clooney that's very unusual for a performance, he blinks a fuck ton.
So you help us get across the border without incident.
And then as
Not
we
at
watch
this
this, he
scene.
does not blink.
Not this scene per se, but
Well,
like
he was in the
life.
shot before this. He was blinking like crazy. And
I think he does every other. Like he's like, I'm gonna blink really hard in this scene, and then I'm not gonna blink in this
he
scene.
thinks about his blinks a lot, I think.
He's a blink thinker for sure. Yeah.
You see that he just stuck a blink in right there.
Yeah. He
like,
thinks.
that's such a weird.
He thinks on these blinks. He doesn't just, hand them out.
He does not just hand them out. What do you? I mean, I don't even know. Are you actually like a Grindhouse movie fan? Not specifically Grindhouse, the Rodriguez.
I don't know what I am, Josh. of the Robert and Quentin.
No, just Grindhouse movies in general.
I mean, I'm coming around for sure. I mean, I had no idea what a grindhouse was until Grindhouse. Yeah. But I would say
I definitely dove more into the like culty movies than you did.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah, I'm experiencing a lot of those for the first time now, and we've discussed before many a time off screen how I have seen a lot of weird movies, but I have not. Excuse me, I've not seen a lot of the classics.
Right.
There's a lot of classic films I've never seen, and there's a lot of. I'm covering most of the cult stuff, but there's still quite a few that I'm not familiar with. But I definitely wasn't a horror fan. I wasn't like a gore fan.
Right. Like I definitely was.
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
even
yeah,
from
yeah.
a young age.
That's a lot of the stuff I'm watching. I'm getting into like retroactively.
Right.
Like, I had never seen Texas Chainsaw Massacre until like a couple of years ago, and then I'm like, holy shit, okay, now I get it.
Right.
But yeah, I'm a bad filmsman.
I mean, that's not unusual that there's so many movies to watch that
There's
it's
a lot of
really
movies.
hard to like watch everything.
Yeah, and so much TV, you guys. I
don't watch TV at all.
I
That's
know.
the thing. I'm not a TV
You're not a
person.
TV guy.
I'm not. I don't get the idea of like having to sink hours into a story that doesn't really have an ending.
Sure.
So for me, I know that some shows do.
Right,
There's
right.
plenty of shows I love.
Yeah.
But like that idea of even when they start, sometimes they don't know where they're going to go or if they're going to get canceled or what's going to happen. To me, part of that is just like mentally I can't wrap my head around doing that sometimes, where I'm like, how can you start something that you don't know if you're going to truly finish?
Sure. I do it all the time.
I
can relate.
I can't do that at all. Oh my God! If Grey Woods has taught us anything, I can't let things die. Daniel and I are making a movie that we're finishing up just now called Grey Woods Plot that we started 2 years ago,
let it die.
and we easily could have let it die. And I came back and was like, I got to finish this fucking thing, or I'm not going to be able to go on.
No, you made a good call. But
the movie came out. Yeah, it's coming out fantastic, and I really love it. But it's just funny that would have been of all of the moves to make.
Right.
Going back to that movie was not the logical step.
Right. No, I think all the world would agree. Once they see it.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, no. I love your work. I love what you're doing. I love what you're doing over there. And I love this scene. I love this the border scene that we're now watching when they're about to get inspected by the...
It is a tense scene.
Border Patrol. It's well done.
And it really makes you feel like this movie, this is what the vibe is going to be of the whole thing. This is going to become a tense, like family drama across the border.
Action drama.
Right.
Which a lot of the movies of like the mid to early 90s were. Like this is sort of part and parcel with a lot of the stuff that was coming out.
Oh, 100%.
Not
everything
nearly as well
was
written or well acted, but you know.
Right. But everything was
but
kind
this,
of
you
like
could see
this.
Charlie Sheen in this movie and it would have got greenlit
Yes.
at the same time. If you just cut out the vampires, they'd be like, oh yeah, Sheen's on it.
Yep. Cut out the vampires, cut out the murdering and potentially raping the woman at the beginning.
Right.
Cut out a couple of the those elements. Yeah. And you make that getting shot and looking through his hand thing a much bigger joke.
Right. Yeah.
That's a 3-minute setup to a punchline
right
joke. But in this, they just throw it in there and they're like, yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah, no. It's good stuff.
I need your cover. Cover me.
Yeah. No, I'm seeing some Grindhouse work now.
Right. I mean, and it's a thin line of what's considered Grindhouse, I guess, in some ways, where I consider stuff that you would just watch at a theater, like really, really B movie stuff. I still consider that kind of Grindhouse in a way.
Sure, yeah,
like the Mystery Science Theater 3000 type of movies.
Right.
Or, maybe not stuff that necessarily played on Mystery Science Theater, but those type of B camp movies. And I love those. Like, Final Sacrifice is legitimately one of my favorite movies.
Iconic.
And I know that's ridiculous, but I fucking love that movie to death. There's something about how weird and simple and awful it is.
The Final Sacrifice.
Oh, I love it.
It's a classic, a modern classic. Yeah. No, I definitely, but that was the Tarantino's thing too. And Roberts. I mean, they just understood. Growing up with these films, they knew what made them interesting and just gave you a movie that was solely filtered through that lens of this is all the best stuff from that era and from those films,
right?
Thrown into one, epic. And this is the kind of the purest of them all, I feel. I mean, even like we had touched upon, Planet Terror doesn't totally have the Grindhouse vibe.
Yeah.
I mean, Death Proof does, but it's also sort of almost parody in a way. And this one is I
agree. That's why this one it isn't parody at all.
Yeah.
This is just a sincere Grindhouse movie.
Yeah. Yep. Well before they, were able to do it proper.
Right. And I mean the name from Dusk Till Dawn comes from the old drive-in theaters. They would have the sign up that said "From Dusk Till Dawn."
Sure.
And that's how long movies played, and then kids would go out, drive out to their cars and watch those movies.
Yeah. That's great.
His badge says, or his name tag, Cheech's name tag says Oscar Marine, which is his dad's name.
Oh, funny.
Who actually worked for the LAPD.
That's fantastic. Oh, Cheech.
So one cool little trivia fact about the Cloonster, who's on screen right now. Before George Clooney was cast, Antonio Banderas, makes sense, was potentially cast for this movie.
Of course.
Steve Buscemi,
Oh,
which is a weird
Weird.
take on that character,
right.
but actually kind of plays a better brother to Tarantino than
Yeah,
Clooney, I think.
True.
I could see those two being
I think it would
brothers.
play more, and it would play more, a little more, like, I don't know. I guess-
slapstick, a little bit more like,
Well, I think, like, I don't know, more like Maniac, like, I don't
Maniac
know.
and Maniac. 'Cause-
Yeah.
Which, to me, might not work, because Clooney grounds the other character.
Right,
Like,
yeah.
Clooney grounds Tarantino's character in that he looks like the wise brother.
Right, yeah. You need sort of the older, wiser brother
Whereas I think
character
Buscemi would feel just as crazy.
as an equal almost.
He'd just, right.
They'd be too brotherly.
Michael Madsen, who makes sense as
sure,
well
yeah.
with Tarantino.
That would be great.
But I actually think that he would be great. I think Michael
Yes.
Madsen would have brought a roughness.
Right.
Well, that's what I'm trying to remember. Is Clooney the older brother or the younger brother? I think he did say it earlier, but I just
pretty
can't
sure he's
remember.
the older.
But
Look at that salt and pepper.
yeah, right,
He's the
true.
older. And those eyes.
But
Old, but not too old.
Michael Madsen would have brought a real like gruff brotherly,
Yeah.
like, I don't know. He would have been good, and actually I could
Would've
see
been
them
great.
playing brothers as well. Tim Roth, that would have been really weird because I see Tim Roth
Basically, anyone from Reservoir Dogs was first on the call
Yeah, right.
sheet.
Exactly. That's lit. So it's them.
Like,
It's
they're all busy. Okay.
yeah. And Tim Roth
No,
to
but
me,
Tim Roth, Tim Roth, I could see.
I could see it, but he also feels small to me. I mean, he
Yeah.
is. He's like a short dude,
He's
and
a
he
shorty.
always plays.
He would bring the same kind of energy that Buscemi would.
He would,
Like, they have the capacity to go to older brother sternness, but you wouldn't take him seriously.
John Travolta,
Whoa, perfect.
which would have been. This is right after Pulp Fiction, so it
Yep.
kind of makes sense.
Yep.
And would have been a weird performance. He would have been like,
Yeah.
"This is what you're gonna do. You're
I
gonna
actually
go
don't
home.
see
You're
it.
gonna jerk off. You're gonna." That's a
Yeah.
Pulp Fiction line.
That's a great line.
Um,
or a great delivery.
Thank you.
Or a great thing to say to someone in time of need. Yeah, I guess actually I don't know. I couldn't see it. I mean, I could see it, but I wouldn't like
I wouldn't
it.
want it.
It would be too
Nope.
close to Pulp Fiction, and it
Yes.
just would feel out of character for this.
And Christopher Walken, which would have been really weird.
Wow.
That's
The
like
older
the old brother. It would have played it. They would have changed it to being his
Clooney
dad.
would have been the middle
His
brother.
dad.
Oh, okay.
I would watch that.
No, here we go. Walken, Buscemi, and Tarantino.
If Walken's
Three brothers.
If Walken's
Oldest, middle, and youngest.
Walken's their
Dad.
stepdad.
Wow. So it's a family of crime.
It is a family.
criminals.
Well, it's
But I love that the stepdad
three-
brings them down that path, not their father. The stepfather brings them into a life of crime.
Right, exactly. So the
Interesting
stepdad
story.
brings the two
Interesting
into life of
story.
crime,
Yeah.
and then it counters the father.
We need to make that
son.
movie.
It counters the
Father.
other family. So it's the threes and it's
Sure.
3 and 3.
Sure. One for each of them.
Oh, I love this idea. We should write this movie.
The Dusk
Where
Till
is
Dawn
Christopher
reboot?
Walken? Yeah.
The reboot. Okay, three brothers.
Hey,
Who are
I
all
kn-
so old now.
I know a guy who can.
Walken.
Can you imagine if I emailed Robert Rodriguez this? I'm like, I've got an
you know a
idea.
guy.
This is gonna blow you away.
You know a guy. Yeah. All a perfect time for them to do this movie.
Quentin Tarantino was originally set to direct this movie too, which I think would have made it a very, very, very different movie as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Like the action that Rodriguez brings to it, to me, even in the like non-action sequences, I mean, like you look at this and this looks intense.
Yeah.
Those low Robert
It's a-
angles that
There's
just
a punchiness to it always, which is really, Quentin's, can do, but Robert just has a stamp on it for sure. That would be a different movie. And I wonder if he would, I wonder if back then he was like so hung up on doing only like a handful of movies. You think he was selective
like
really
was he
on-
doing the like 10 movies?
Yeah.
Well, he was at that point. He had just won an Oscar for Pulp Fiction,
Fiction.
for writing Pulp Fiction, so he was writing like crazy.
Sure, that's true.
And this definitely was a love letter to the movies he loved. I mean, Tarantino would never do this shot right here.
Right.
This low angle of the titty twister.
Yeah.
The titty twister was actually shot in a desert in California, which shocks me because it looks like Mexico.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
it's so Mexico.
Yeah.
Not just the building, but just the atmosphere around it as they're driving in. They remade this set at Troublemaker Studio.
Oh, sure.
And
for the movie or
for the
series?
TV for the series.
Yeah, yeah.
And actually, the beginning of the show Rebel Without a Crew, we walked through those doors.
Oh yeah.
The equivalent.
Yep.
The new version, but there was a lot of stuff in there. I think that was stuff that they had used in the actual set for this.
Sure.
So
sure.
they reused a lot of their bottles and stuff Robert keeps around because Robert's essentially a hoarder in the best way possible.
Right.
But
it's a good trait for a filmmaker.
it is.
Especially a low budget.
And I learned from it. I mean, you look
filmmaker.
around downstairs, and I have everything that I've used. I've got the Killer Bible still, just in case there's any need for any of the stuff.
Yeah.
I kept the teddy bear, and we
It's
used
a
the
real
teeth
shrine,
and gray
yeah.
ones. It's less of a shrine and more of a I have to
To
put
all
it.
your failures.
I have to put up all my failures so I get better at life.
It's a shrine of sadness down here.
Shrine of sadness.
The flush dungeon. It's
The
just
flush dungeon.
broken dreams and beer cans.
So the one thing I really do love about when they walk into the titty twister is the way it's lit. It's not lit at all like a typical bar scene.
No.
It's not dark. It's dingy, but in a way that you can see everything.
Yeah, yeah.
That is a fucking young Trejo.
Young.
Crazy
baby
young Trejo. Wow, that's wild to see.
Baby Trey.
Boobs again. Boobs are a thing I've...
You
this
liked-
was 90s. I do love boobs, man. You know
You
that.
were a
But
young boy just...
I was a young boy. See, I wasn't. I was
Going
in
to the
fucking high
local
school.
library.
Looking
to see what a
my
titty
grandpa
looked like.
yeah, just looking for a titty. Well, that is probably... Actually, that is how I started watching movies.
Yeah.
I used to
That's
go
the-
through...
your memoirs right there.
well,
Searching for a titty.
searching for a titty.
Josh
I used to go
Stifter's
through my ex-stepdad's VHS collection because he had HBO, so he'd tape all of his movies on HBO, and I'd
Yeah,
fast forward through the movies just looking for a boobie.
Yeah. You had to.
I
You
did.
You did
There
what you
wasn't
had
there
to
wasn't
do.
even internet back then, so
You
what was
did
I going
what
to
you
do?
had to do.
And I did. I remember the only one he had that I could find for the longest time until I found Fast Times at Ridgemont High was, what is that movie called? Charlize Theron in Down in the Valley, something in a valley, 2 Nights in the Valley, something like that.
That sounds about right.
Yeah, 2 Nights in the Valley, where the homeboy puts the ice on her nipples. That was like the first one. Did you know what I'm talking about? Have you seen that movie?
Yeah. I'm familiar.
I could be wrong. Is it Charlize Theron? I think it is.
Sure.
I think so.
We'll say
I could
yeah.
be totally wrong.
Yeah.
I-
Ice on the nipples.
Welcome to the Titty Twister. Bottle of whiskey and 5 glasses.
I thought there was a line there that
Lost in the...
I did get lost, but I was actually waiting to hear a line that I thought came there that didn't.
Oh, what did you think he was going to say?
I thought that's where he said the line about I only serve 2 types of beer, Mexican and domestic.
Oh,
they're
yeah.
in Mexico. Which I think is a great line. This is a fantastic scene.
Yeah.
Like they throw you into it and just let you roll into the party.
Right.
And then you kind of forget that the other family is sitting there
Right,
and
yeah.
totally out of their element in a titty bar.
Yeah. No, and they just, like, speaking to what you said earlier, too, just, like, being able to keep it well lit, but also keeping the danger.
Right.
There's something to
Tom
it.
Savini
It's
sitting
got
at the table there.
grittiness, yeah. The Savini factor.
It does have the Savini factor. Tom Savini did visual effects for fucking everything.
Yeah.
And he
legend.
became like an actor in things as well, and just kind of, he's a legend. He is
Yeah.
a fucking legend.
Yeah.
Rumor has it he actually knows how to use a whip.
That's what I've read on the internet.
Dan and I looked up trivia before this, and one of the trivia said, oh yes, I've seen that cock gun before.
Yeah, IRL.
In real life, I saw it. That
Wow.
one also shows up in Desperado.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
It's in the, like, Desperado gun box.
Yep.
But Tom Savini is a visual effects guru, has done a ton of amazing stuff, and this was the first time I didn't know that's who he was. Like, I didn't know what he had done, and someone was talking about Tom Savini and showed me a picture, or somehow a picture popped up, and I'm like, that's the dude from Dusk Till Dawn. They're like, yes, Tom Savini. What are you, nuts?
Savini.
There are Chango beer signs all over the place in this bar. And
Yeah.
I think there's one right back there
Yep.
right now. I don't think that is the one, but
Cerveza Django.
yeah, the Chango beer signs actually were up at the house I stayed in during Rebel Without a Crew.
Yeah.
In
That's
fact,
right.
I think we thought about using it. Didn't we at one point talk about bringing it to the bar
so, yeah.
because we didn't know what we could get away with
Right.
in there? It was like
Right.
day one when we first got to the location. And we were going to shoot at the bar, and we had to take down all of those signs because there was
the
beer
bar
signs
was littered
everywhere.
with like neon signs and like just stuff on the wall. And it's perfect for a movie or for shooting, but we'd have to get clearances for everything, and there's no way.
Well, and then a week
So
into
then we had
the
to
shoot,
take everything down.
we did, but then a week into the shoot, they were like, "It's an indie film. You don't have to take it down." Like that's not how indie films work. We have to take it down because I kept
Gotcha.
wasting time like moving shit and taking stuff down.
Oh,
and
sure.
then Cecilia was like, "What? Why do you keep doing that? You don't have to do that. That's for the reality crew to do. You're wasting time telling your cast to move stuff."
Oh, funny.
So that's why
Whoop.
there's that shot when you're dancing in the past the building, and there's like a Dr. Pepper or a Coca-Cola sign or something like that.
Yeah.
And I didn't have you guys move it because I was like, no, they told me I don't have to.
Sure.
It's not in the movie. That shot ended up not getting used because I liked using your feet better. But I did shoot it.
Sure. And it could have been
And
A-okay.
It would have been A-okay until a studio bought it, and then they'd have to find a way to remove it.
Right. Though the things you learn. Yeah,
Just look at the line delivery right there. Like the way he says it, he just stares into his eyes.
right.
There's something like it's paternally intense without being over the top.
Right. That's full dad right there. It's a full,
Trying to explain something to a dude
yeah.
and
Full,
defending his kids. Or like trying, you know what I mean? Like he's
Right,
Papa
right.
Bearing, but not like
Yeah.
just jumping on him.
right. That's a straight up Papa Bear right there.
There's a nice little edit right there where Clooney like takes a big, like he gulps, but it's not oversold.
Right.
And you can just see his neck sort of like shit. This guy's mad. Like I gotta figure this shit out.
Yeah.
It's really good.
I insist. To your family.
It's a fun little dynamic, you know, the bad guys and the...
Well, that was the beauty. That's one of the things I love about this movie with Clooney and Tarantino is the fact that they really don't feel like bad guys. They're
Right.
raping and murdering, and we're
Right.
told at the beginning of
We're
the movie
told
in the
that
news they're
on
bad
the news
guys.
that they're bad guys, but yeah. But to keep the movie, you know,
And that's why I think
Interesting.
Madsen maybe wouldn't have worked.
yeah.
And Buscemi wouldn't have worked. Like Clooney brings a dynamic where you just can't hate him.
Yeah. I would justify all of his murders. I love him so
Well,
much.
I don't know. Has
Those
he murdered
eyes-
anyone?
I don't know.
I guess they probably say he has. I feel like
they
his,
were like yeah.
his brother's murdering everyone, and he's just kind of going with it.
Oh, he murdered.
Oh yeah, he did throw the fire at the guy.
Clooney
So yeah, he's a
murdered.
murderer. So fun,
Clooney's murdered before.
fun trivia tidbit.
He's seen the life leave someone's eyes.
Of course, I think so has Julia Lewis. So
Well, right, obviously.
so apparently Salma Hayek was deathly afraid of snakes
Ugh,
before
don't
this.
blame her.
Let's talk about snakes again. So
Enough
Dan,
with these
we
snakes.
talked. There was
I'm
snakes in
noticing a
Toxic
theme.
Avenger. Yeah, there's a theme.
Snakes.
So in Toxic Avenger, there was a snake, and I asked Dan about it, and he said he's terrified of snakes.
Yeah, I hate
So
snakes.
apparently, Salma Hayek was terrified of snakes as well.
Good on her.
She had to go to therapy for 2 months to get better after Robert Rodriguez told her that Madonna had been hired for the role, and she wanted it so bad that she was like, "No, I'll take the role," and
She
then
went for it.
and then went to therapy to get over her fear of snakes.
Wow.
Daniel, would you go to therapy for my movie? If I was like, I need.
So she went before or after? I'm sure. I'll
I'm
go
sure
to
after she
therapy
was
after.
hired. No, after she was after she was hired, before she had to go,
Yeah.
because she had to be able to act with. She had to be able to dance sexily with this thing.
Gotcha. No, I wouldn't.
It's-
I wouldn't go to therapy.
I would
for
never.
one of
I
your-
could never ask you to do that. The snake. Why the?
thank you.
I guess because the snake, the devil.
Yeah,
That makes sense thematically.
it's genius. Well, and they're kind of
It's
like
genius.
these snake vampires.
They are, but
They got serpentine qualities.
right. But the snake is literally in the Bible as like
Yeah.
evil.
Yeah. And she's
So
giving off real Eve vibes, you know.
Right.
It's just, you know, it all makes sense.
Apparently,
if you watch the dance, it all makes sense.
It does it? I mean, I guess.
No, I don't.
Oh, okay.
I don't know.
The apparently, Robert didn't choreograph this sexy dance. He just told her to feel the music, and did the same thing in Sin City.
He's
Jessica
a pro.
Alba. Well,
Yeah.
it doesn't hurt that he just casts sexy women, and all she has to do is walk, and you're like, okay, she's sexy.
I mean, that helps.
I remember Jessica Alba's dance a lot better, as far as like actual dancing goes.
Well, I mean, that was all over, yeah, everywhere.
That's true. It
That
was,
was
literally the trailer.
It was like the whole trailer. Like, you want to see Jessica Alba dance? Sin City.
I don't know if it's this song, but I'm pretty sure one of the songs played at the bar is, this is like Robert's band.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I think the drummer is from Oingo Boingo,
Oh, wild.
I believe. I'm down throwing out false trivia. But
After all this, man,
I'll-
you do all this fact checking.
I do
you
all this
do the
fact
research,
checking, and I do
and
the
then you're
research.
just gonna piss away all of it with your fake news. Wow.
well, I'll find it. Will you talk about this performance or something?
Yeah, this performance. I mean, as a kid, this is all I remember. I remember the dance, and then I remember the full-on vampire. But you know, I needed more context. Turns out, if you watch the whole film, there is no more context. But that's fine. I've come to terms with it.
Did you know that there... Oh, okay. Here's a fun fact. I can get into fun facts while we're here.
It's fine.
Originally...
You don't have to do this.
No, originally I like the fun facts. It's my favorite part of this. I get to learn things that then I can incorrectly spew out later. At the beginning of the Titty Twister, when Cheech pops out,
Yep.
that was originally meant to be played by Eric Estrada.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Chips his own.
Chips his own. Eric Estrada. That would have
C-Lab
been
2021.
Zone.
Right? He was in C-Lab 2021, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm
he
not
was
wrong?
Marco.
Yeah, he's Marco, right. Marco with his mailbox head.
Yeah. Oh, classic. Yeah,
I could see that,
I
though.
could see that. Yeah, I don't. That's not much of a stretch.
Truth.
It is
Yeah.
funny. So it does make me wonder if though he just wasn't available. So then they decided to double up on Cheech there. Like if that was an afterthought, just because they
and
had Cheech.
and here's what I'll say. I love this form of Cheech.
Right. Yeah, I mean,
Seeing
Officer
go-
Cheech is like an underutilization of Cheech. I mean,
True.
if you're gonna have Cheech, this is what you need.
I've been talking a lot about Cheech because when I was a kid, before I knew Robert Rodriguez, before I knew anything else, I knew
Right.
Cheech.
Yeah, yeah.
Because Cheech was a school bus driver for kids' music. Do you know this? Do you remember?
No.
There was a series of like tapes, and this was pre-CDs, tapes and maybe records, I don't know. But they were called Cheech the School Bus Driver, and it was Cheech, and he'd be like, "My name is Cheech, and I am a school bus driver."
Oh.
And it was all like it was like an audio version of the Magic School Bus.
Oh, wild.
And they didn't really do anything magic. He just taught lessons
Sure.
and sang songs about the lessons.
Wow.
Where he'd be
and
like,
you had this.
I listened to it ad nauseum. I could still sing the songs. I'm like,
My name is Cheech and I am a school bus driver. A yellow school bus driver's who I am. And I come over hills and down.
I love it. See, there you go. Clooney just killed a man. He just killed Cheech.
I assume he killed people. I'm just saying in the
He
movie.
killed a guy.
An audience doesn't accept things they're told. They have to see it. So
Right.
in my head, part of me is like, has he killed anyone? Or is it just his brother is killing people on this path and he's just trying to defend his brother
Sure.
while they rob banks or whatever
right,
they do?
right.
Or, I guess, liquor stores.
I get you.
But you're right. He throws a flaming
Look,
toilet
I've caught
paper.
myself justifying Clooney's
That's an
actions
amazing
multiple
effect
times.
right there.
Yeah.
That is a fucking seamless effect for the era.
Great transformation, yeah.
And it's part of it's the lean, because you can
Mm-hmm.
get away with such a weird, like, I don't know, like it doesn't feel forced because there's motion happening.
Right, exactly. It's not like a still shot while stuff just happens.
I was also
to her and
blown
around
away
her.
by how Tarantino dies there. He looks so legit like he's dying.
Yeah.
But he just goes all in.
That's why I knew Tarantino the actor, man. I love his work.
Hey.
Oh, man. Yeah, this is when it really goes off the rails.
And yeah, this is when it becomes a straight up vampire movie. Love that effect too.
Yep. All the vampires.
Yeah, they all look great.
They're beefy. They're unique.
I still
good
want to
shit.
know how the cock gun actually works.
Sure.
Is it
Thrusting.
Is it from the motion of his pelvis?
Right. Does he shake it into submission?
Is it like a button on his hands or something like that he hits?
Like a Spider-Man sort of situation?
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's, I want to believe that it's a little of both. I think he thrusts it open and then he uses a finger for safety.
Oh, that's a beautiful effect. The way the head just flops backwards.
Yeah.
Yeah, this shit goes off the rails.
There's some great stuff. This whole sequence is just fantastic.
Yeah, it just goes wild and fun and throws caution to the wind and just is like, you know what? Let's go for it.
Yeah. We did promise vampires.
No, what if we had promised that and then we were watching it and we get to the end and we're like, what the fuck? There are no vampires?
You know what everybody says about me, huh? I suck.
Well, in a way, we call them vampires, but they're really more just demons, right?
Yeah.
I guess they're drinking blood.
Yeah, that is like the thing. They do drink blood. They do have the fangs.
And
but
the cross
also
makes him melt.
Yeah, but it is such a unique take on vampires. Like
It is. The slimy eyes.
slimy
yes.
eyeballs, iconic. If your eyeballs don't slime in your film, you're fucking up.
God, why didn't we have more slimy eyeballs?
I know. Next time. Next time.
Let's see if you taste as good as your brother.
Fuck you.
What was the one I was looking for? I was looking for a specific little tidbit, and now I can't remember what it was even. So, did you know, Daniel, that this franchise is titled A Drink in Hell in Brazilian Portuguese?
I did not know that. Is that a true fact?
That is a
Or
true
one of your
fact.
fake facts.
It is a true fact. All of these facts. Oh yeah, I was looking for the band.
No, I love it.
I was looking for who the band was because now I don't want to give false facts to the folks out there.
It's quite all right.
Yeah, I know. It's fine. I give up. Let's just talk. Yeah, it is. It's Oingo Boingo. It's that band. It's Oingo Boingo, and it was fucking Fred Durst on vocals.
Yeah, iconic. Such a ragtag group of performers.
So apparently, though, they did do the whip based on the Belmont from Castlevania.
Sure.
Was a reference to that and
Heck
why
yeah.
they decided to go with the whip and vampires. It makes sense.
Yeah, I mean it's vampires. Oh, the
Great use of eyeballs.
eyeballs into the pool. Oh,
Rodriguez is great with eyeball things.
Yeah.
He uses a lot of like eyeballs.
he loves eyeball gags.
He loves eyeball gags. He
Yeah.
really does.
Because I don't think you're worthy of human blood. You feed on the blood of stray dogs.
He's got a cartoonish streak in the best way.
Right, and that's why I always thought that Machete, the animated series, would be a perfect, like we talked about on the Toxic Avenger episode, how they did a Toxic Crusaders cartoon.
True,
Even
yeah.
though it's an R-rated movie, they made it into cartoon. But in the era of adult cartoons being more popular than kids' cartoons,
Yeah, there should be a Machete cartoon.
Machete, the animated series, to me just is
I'm here for it.
smart.
I'm here for it.
From Dusk Till Dawn, the animated series.
The
I
list
would-
goes on
yeah,
and
right.
on. Death Proof, the animated
Death
series.
Proof, the animated series. I would watch that.
Yeah, why not?
See, and now we're teaming the two up. What a great way to, like, blend
Yeah.
the beginning and this part where they've had these conversations and now they're teaming up.
Mm-hmm. Friendship prevails.
Say to me first.
I mean, that's a really cool thing about this, too, is like Tom Savini and his character both don't come in until 10 minutes earlier to this, 15 minutes earlier to this.
Right.
And now we're rooting for just random bar patrons.
Right.
Which I'll say Robert also did in Alita really well. He brought in like bar patrons, specifically at the Kansas bar, which takes place, the Kansas bar in Alita is the same bar as the From Dusk Till Dawn, the series bar.
Yep.
Because after I was off of the show, they changed it to Kansas bar. It was the Dusk Till Dawn bar while I was on the show, and then it went to become the Kansas bar.
Right, right. And the one used in Sin City.
And the bar used in Sin City. Yeah. That's right, yeah.
Homeboy gets his mileage out of all of his stuff.
He definitely gets his mileage. He put a bar in one movie, and he's just like... And Robert doesn't even drink much.
Right, right.
Which, like, I understand me making every movie take place in a bar.
It's just easy.
It makes life
I'm
easy
already
for
there.
me. Yeah, right. When I come home drunk, I can be like, I love the old creepy naked one. Oh,
Yes.
It's so fucking cool.
Such a shining moment to have that old saggy.
It looks like the saggy tit
vampire.
Yeah, it definitely has a shining vibe to it.
Yeah. No, the effects in this movie are just top notch.
I remember the first time I saw this as a kid, in high school. When they started walking to them, my first thought was like, is this movie just going to end here? Like, they're not going to give us, movies did that. They would end with like a thing where you're like, okay, you're just being weird to be weird, and now you're annoying me.
Right, right. No, there's some more.
There is definitely more.
Don't worry.
But I've also learned that that's a sign of a good movie to me. When a movie gets to a point and I question if I'm like, is that the end? Damn. And then more happens, they wrote it right. Because a lot of movies you can feel it. You're like, okay, well, we're not at the end yet. No way. Right. But if the movie is just weird enough that I don't know when it's going to end, I love that. And I noticed that with The Good Exorcist, that's one of my favorite things, because we did that with the Bible. Where it got to the Bible and everyone thinks it's ending. They tell me that all the time, where they're like, it got to the Bible and I was like, oh, really? That's kind of a lame ending.
Sure.
And I'm like, why would that be the ending? We haven't even set up where the demon is. Like, Maria nothing even happened with Maria. Like, that's so anticlimactic. But
yeah,
I like that. I like when something is set up like this is going to be the end.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. It keeps you guessing. And I think, that is just a true testament, because, not even to say a linear path, but a lot of movies just have a structure about them that they just wrap for the sake of wrapping the film, and it doesn't quite make sense, and you kind of feel like you've just wasted hours you can't get back, and it's like, well, no, you got to go a little bit further.
Or they do the opposite, where they put that thing that's supposed to feel like a fake ending, and you're like, well, that can't be the ending, because literally we didn't even get to the other thing yet. But this movie, because we've already... we somehow all of a sudden have vampires. It's like, it could end anywhere.
It could end here. You're like, okay. As logical a place as any.
Right.
Yep.
And I think that's what happens with The Good Exorcist, where people are like, I don't know what the fuck I'm watching scene after scene of this priest having stupid things jump out at him.
If you tell me this is the end, why not?
Yeah, right. I got my they got their $7,000 out of it. Yeah. This is all we need. Like, that's literally, I think that's what people think. Yeah. They get to the Bible and they're like, okay, that must be the end, because that felt like $7,000 worth of movie. And we haven't even gone to hell yet.
You idiots.
See, that looks more vampire. Like, that's like what you'd expect from a vampire movie is...
The Tarantino...
The couple of fangs.
The eyeballs, the lenses,
It's true. And I think that's a lesson for filmmakers, is it's okay to go way too far. You know what I mean? Like, to push it and go like, if I'm going to do vampires, I'll make them fucking crazy demon vampires.
Yeah.
I mean, and obviously this movie had a huge budget. It was like $50 million or something like that.
Sure.
But it's Robert, so he probably spent like $10 million on it and spent a bunch of money on random shit. Like, half of these fun scenes we're seeing is because he was like, we're going to save money and we'll just use my grandpa's RV. Like, I don't know whose RV I made. That is not trivia, folks. I just made that shit up.
He owns it now, though.
He does. It was at the...
He has the RV at Troublemaker.
It's at Troublemaker Studio, yeah.
Yep.
I snuck onto it.
Yeah, took a little snooze.
I just rammed a wooden stake into my brother's chest because he turned into a vampire. Even though I don't believe
I didn't take a snooze. Wouldn't that be amazing if I just like... No, I went and
this is
sat
the
it.
RV from Dusk Till Dawn? I wonder what it'd be like to take a nap. I could see you doing
They
it.
bossed me. I get kicked off the show because I'm just sitting in the front seat.
Oh, I'd sure love to nap in the RV. What a story to tell the grandkids. Hey, I napped in the RV.
The whole reason for
Dusk
doing
Till-
this... My whole reason for doing this podcast is because I want to brag about taking a nap in the RV.
Even if my film career tanks, I can always tell my kids that I slept in the RV from
Yep.
Dusk Till Dawn.
No, I stepped in it, I looked around, and then I walked out. 'Cause I was it was like going to the library and renting From Dusk Till Dawn, except I was waiting for Robert, the librarian, to
you're
pop
probably
out
like
and be like...
strange fear boner in that moment of just like
I do live on the edge.
nervous
I will
shame.
say that. I live on the edge.
Wow.
I also sat
What
in
a
the...
charmed life.
I sat in the car from
Machete.
yeah.
Machete. Yeah.
The big
second
one,
one.
the second one, the
Yeah.
big cruiser.
Yeah.
Which at the time I hadn't even seen the movie, so I guess it wasn't that cool to me then. And now I'm like, man, I got to sit in that.
I have to go back.
I gotta go back.
Take a snooze.
I gotta go take snooze. I slept in all those cars. You see that bar back there? Slept on that bar.
I could see that.
I'm not even a napper. I don't know why the snoozing.
I
is
just
happening.
like this character for you.
Yeah, I do too.
It's a fun trait. The sleeping.
You think
dad.
that guy had no legs?
I don't know, but I feel like you're setting me up for some trivia.
Well, here's a little trivia. That guy? I don't know if he has legs.
No legs.
He looks like he's got no legs. If he has legs, they did a fucking good job hiding them.
Yeah. If only you could call someone.
Hey, Robert, I'm doing a podcast right now. Can you tell me yes or no if Guy at minute 115 of From Dusk Till Dawn had legs or not? Yeah? Lose your number? All right, bye. Click.
Oh, he wouldn't mind. He loves it. He loves it. He loves a good bit of trivia, just like you.
He does, actually. I have a trivia bit that wasn't listed on there, but it's coming up in just a second.
Straight from Robert.
Straight from Robert.
Wow.
I hope Robert doesn't listen to this.
I really don't think he's gonna want to after this.
What's your name, girlie?
Kate, what's yours?
Sex Machine. Pleased to meet you, Kate.
You know, so there was a sequel video game to this movie that came out on PC.
Yeah, we talked about there's a PC game that I do not remember.
No, it got buried. It's by Cryo.
Yeah.
And
I mean, we weren't playing PC games at all, but I mean, I remember going to Target and just like looking at all the PC games.
Oh, it must have got
back when they came in like these giant boxes. Like PC gaming used to be all about the boxes, man.
Oh, it was all about
the
like
boxes. Cereal boxes. They were huge.
They
for
were,
a
and then
disc.
you'd open it up, and it was just a CD case
Tiny
in there,
CD, yeah.
and a user manual,
a jewel case, and a user manual.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
But the box looked impressive.
Took up the real estate, man. Yeah, and I don't remember a Dusk Till Dawn cereal box.
The trivia just talked about the story.
Sure.
Have you watched From Dusk Till Dawn, the series?
I've seen bits and pieces.
Yeah, same here. I haven't watched the whole thing either yet.
Yeah.
I don't want you. I said it earlier. I don't watch shows. I'm not a shows guy.
You're not a showsman.
I am not. That's why I loved
you
Rebel
love
Without a
beginning,
Crew.
a middle, and an end.
Rebel Without a Crew is 12 episodes. You get through it in 4.5 hours. That's TV made for me.
You can have a nap right after it.
Oh, snooze. I snooze halfway through and I snooze at the end.
I hear you.
I never nap. I don't
But yeah,
know.
what was the plot of the Dusk Till Dawn video game?
So they get
It's a
sent to
sequel?
a prison
Okay.
for some reason.
Love
yeah, it's a
it.
sequel to
Love
this.
it.
They get sent to a prison.
The brother?
It must be the
there's
brothers.
only one brother.
Yeah, there's only one brother. So
That's
he
right.
gets it's Clooney's character.
Sorry, spoiler. Clooney only lives.
So he gets sent to
The
a
last
prison.
Clooney alive.
And then vampires attack the prison, and it's off of
Wow.
it's like an old like oil tanker or something.
This is a
So
great
it's
movie.
basically Face Off.
Yeah.
Remember Face
And
Off
The
has
Rock.
that prison and The Rock.
This has got
It had
Bruckheimer all over
it. had
it.
Bruckheimer. It was produced
Bruckheimer
by Bruckheimer,
attached.
and it had Nick Cage.
Holy
and,
shit!
No, it didn't.
As
have Nick Cage.
Clooney, as Clooney's
yeah.
character. Oh man!
He just did the
Still,
voice.
sign me up. Has there ever been a situation? This might be a question that's too difficult to answer right now. But has there ever been a character shift from an actor that is like that, like going from a Clooney to a Cage?
Oh, there has to have been.
Like that big of names.
Oh, big names. Yeah, that would be tough.
Because usually it's like no name to no name,
I mean,
or a no name to a name.
El Mariachi
went
from a no name,
a nobody, to Antonio
Banderas.
And then ever been like a lateral fucking move of like here's
big name,
here's George Clooney
name.
to Nicolas Cage, playing the same role.
He kind of was a no name. I was gonna say the Lethal Weapon television show. But I would say that Sean William Scott is probably a bigger name than the guy that I don't know his name.
I'm venturing to guess. Yes.
True.
I think you've answered your own question. The film daddy.
Yeah, there was the lateral move of The Mask to Son of the Mask.
Oh yeah, Jim Carrey to Jamie Kennedy.
But
they weren't playing the same guy though. Were they?
They weren't? I thought they were. They're both Stanley Ipkiss, no?
Really? No.
Maybe not. I thought they were.
I don't think so.
So how did he...
We'll watch it on the show. We'll save it for the show.
Oh, we should do that. I would do Son of the Mask.
Woof.
If you guys want to hear Son of the Mask, well, we wouldn't watch it. The problem is then I'd have to do
episode.
trivia on Son of the Mask,
Oh,
and
you sound so sad. More trivia for Josh.
The thing I like about trivia is I can read a couple, take a snooze, read a couple more, take a snooze.
I'd hate that journey for you. Just facts and sleep.
Facts and sleep, and then watching the movie while I get drunk.
Isn't that life in a nutshell, though? We're just like consuming information, going to bed.
Holy shit. From Dusk Till Dawn brought out the deepest conversation Daniel has ever wanted to have.
I mean, when you think about it, isn't that what we're doing? We just wake up to learn more, to consume, and then just...
You sound like me.
Fall asleep and forget
This is the conversation I'd start having with Jenny right before bed, and then she'd go like, I don't know, doesn't Facebook have something for you right now?
Can't you go back to the flesh dungeon?
Can't you go back to your dungeon? I love to do that. I love it like late at night to ask a super...
broken dream dungeon of
That's why I bring
tears.
you here. I bring you down here to boost my confidence.
That's what I'm here
This kid's
for.
always napping and hanging out in his dungeon of broken dreams.
Oh, his sleepy, sad cave. Yeah.
You know, I forgot
I love
how...
From Dusk Till Dawn. Let me just say it.
I know, and I do love how this movie can change tone extremely abruptly and still work.
Yeah. Like most movies would be relentless with the zombie attack. The zombie attack, vampires. The vampire attack is only like 10 minutes. Like it doesn't consume the entire last act. They like kick everyone's ass. They all melt.
Right.
And then more.
Well,
and then we have this downbeat again. And then it's like the final.
Well, and there's a subtlety to the fact that it opens like a war, like a battle. And it slowly drops down.
Right,
Which is the opposite of what you usually see. It never de-escalates.
Yeah.
And that's
what starts at 100 and works back to 0.
And I actually thought, because Robert does that a lot. And when we were writing the Good Exorcist script, I wanted
it's a great move.
I wanted it each to escalate. Like each monster gets a little weirder, but a little closer to something important.
Yeah.
You know, like this movie sort of builds towards just like little moments of we're building to something, and then it just hits like a ton of bricks. Right. And when you go to hell, at least in the idea, whether we pulled it off or not isn't for me to say, but when
I'll tell you, we didn't.
When it goes to hell, it's just like, holy shit, they went all in.
Right.
And like, this is way bigger than I expected.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think that's why most people logically think the Bible is the last scene, is because it's grounded. It's far more grounded while still being the most over-the-top thing they've just experienced, not expecting what we deliver after that.
Right.
Because that just seems, it's so out of left field, in a sense.
And I think mentally when you're seeing... Well, I don't want to spoil that, I guess. I'm okay spoiling the hell thing, but what actually happens, I don't like to spoil.
Right. What happens in hell stays in hell.
What happens in hell stays in hell. But what I will say is then after that, we take it to a lesser level. Like we
de-escalate.
Up, we go like
we start
up,
at 100.
Then we hit hard with a battle, and then we like it's not literally a battle, but like that idea, and then we de-escalate at the end to a somber moment.
The hell sequence is like 100, and then the actual
battle.
Descent back. Right. The battle is like a trickle down.
Yeah, right, exactly. Well, it's
but
a zero.
not in a bad way.
No, in a good way. When you see it happen, it's like it puts a smile on everyone's face because it's a payoff. It's just not the payoff of like
us paying them to smile.
It's us paying them to smile. Smile, motherfuckers. That's how I want to go out with every movie. And that was from the beginning. That was my intent with The Good Exorcist, and I feel like it's the same thing with this movie.
Yeah.
I feel like everything, I feel like it's that with everything Robert does, where every moment is there for you to enjoy.
Yes. Right.
He's a pure entertainer.
Right. It doesn't follow any sort of like conventional storytelling structure. It just gives you these great moments. Such a comedic fucking scene.
A slapstick beat.
Savini turning into a vampire is such a slapsticky while they're watching the story being told.
Right.
Oh, this is iconic.
Blood.
Chunks on the barrel.
Yellow flesh.
This is funny because this part always gets lost to me because I'm not listening. I'm so into what's happening.
Or what is about to happen. Oh, those fingers.
And that's like a wonderful Sam Raimi-esque beat.
Yes, 100%.
There is, and that's the weird thing about this movie is, and why it is, I think, confusing sometimes, because it does just teeter that line between drama, comedy, and horror.
Yeah.
Which is the same thing that something like Drag Me to Hell does.
Yeah.
And those are my favorite kind of movies, where they give these moments of brevity, they give these moments of depth and darkness, and they're also hilarious.
Yeah. 100%. And I feel like, but it works with Rodriguez and with, a lot of these filmmakers, just because it's the characters. Like,
right.
You go on the journey because the characters that they've provided, which is like such a testament to, and I think what we were trying to pull off with The Good Exorcist too is like, if the characters are strong, people will go on the journey no matter how insane.
Yeah, whether it makes sense or not. It doesn't, yeah, right. Because I will be the first to admit our story is stupid. We never went into it going like, we need to logically explain what the devil is.
Right. Exactly. There's lore there, but there's really not lore there.
No, but there's not.
But the characters are worth the ride.
But the worst kind of movies to me are the ones who try to make the lore really make sense. Look at that effect. That's amazing.
Such a great little Batman.
Which they never showed earlier. Like there's like things that you don't set up that it's still, you don't care that it's not set up. You just watch it going,
yep,
so much fun to watch.
Yeah.
And there's plenty of movies that
this movie is great at that.
That just aren't fun to watch in that way. So are there any other movies like this? Like that kind of grindhouse cheese, but to you don't work? So for me, the ones that don't work for me a little bit are, and I'm like not the best at being negative and shitting on things. It's just not really in my MO. But one of the things I learned from that I don't like is, like the Resident Evil movies.
Sure.
The Resident Evil movies don't do anything for me because of the fact that I feel like they're trying to be fun like this while missing the fun mark because they're taking their own lore so seriously.
Sure. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I would say, and I don't have specific examples, but I would say, as following that same vein, to me that is the difference maker, is you have to be in on the joke with your film. Otherwise, it's not fun.
Right.
Like, it's not fun for the audience if you're not laughing. Because then, And the Resident Evil series had a bit of that, and then a lot of modern movies I think a lot of those sort of like quasi big budgeted movies that want to harken back to like a B movie sort of thing, or a monster movie or a genre movie, they always end up just being too serious. There's like, it's a step too into like the too self, seriousness.
Or they do the opposite, like The Meg, which I was really excited to see, and I actually didn't hate The Meg necessarily. It had things in it that I was like, wow, I can't believe they went for it. But it tries to be a massive monster movie with a giant shark.
Sure.
And just ends up being so, like, trying to be tongue-in-cheek that it loses me completely.
Right,
so the characters aren't even taking their world seriously.
Yeah, that's a big one. That's a rough one. That's hard to get behind. it's got to toe that line. It's got to be just fun without being like tongue in cheek or like too goofy. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a tough sell, and it's a tough. And I think part of it is people are just trying to figure out, like as a filmmaker, you're just trying to figure out what works for you in that way.
Yeah. Well, and I think it is like, and that's the tough part. I think that's the biggest issue right now with a lot of the big Hollywood films is they know that character is important and they only have a lot of time to tell a story. So they've replaced interesting people with well-known faces.
Right.
So now The Rock, I don't dislike The Rock. I don't dislike the work of Dwayne Johnson. But Dwayne Johnson is now the placeholder for XYZ character in XYZ film. Rather than building a character around Dwayne Johnson, which is way more exciting, and which like The Rundown and Walking Tall, his earlier work was about. Now it's literally, here's The Rock as the character of The Rock in The Rock Goes to Skyscraper.
The Rock fights Monkey Man and Crocodile thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I think Rampage is actually, that's a great example of Rampage is a ridiculous B movie in concept.
Yeah,
but it's just The Rock and a monkey.
Yeah,
like fighting
and
monsters.
again, I think the movie doesn't completely not work for me.
I haven't seen it, but
it would have been a stronger movie if The Rock's character wasn't just, hey, it's me, The Rock.
Right, and that's why I think Jumanji worked so well. I really love that new Jumanji movie. I thought it was fantastic. And part of the reason I loved it was because everyone was working outside of their box.
Yeah.
Like, The Rock had to play a completely different character than we've ever seen him. Jack Black had to play against his type. Everyone played against their type.
Yep.
And it was fun to watch them play against their type. The actual scenes in the movie were fine, but not as fun as watching the characters be those characters.
Yeah. No, definitely. And I think Robert's a good example of someone that knows that, like, just creating an interesting character is just as much about style as it is about, story or like backstory. And that was one of the big things with our character, Marie, on The Good Exorcist, like the eye patch idea. It's kind of pulled directly from Machete, but it stems from this movie where, like, just like having an interesting tattoo or like having like the characters, just there's something about them or there's a physical tick or that is enough to fill in all those blanks in a really quick way without having to.
Right, we gave the priest a belt buckle and a cowboy hat, and instantly you're like, okay, I kind of get this guy.
Yeah, exactly. That already paints a picture for you that you don't need to then explain.
And like your beard, when we were like thinking about it, it was just a matter of like, okay, you don't see that very often. You don't see a priest with a beard who's young.
Right.
It's just not that common, and we played with that because originally when we picked that genre for the movie of the priest, it was because we had the costume essentially. Like it wasn't a hard costume to put together.
Right. We just needed a collar.
We literally, we needed a collar, and I wanted him to wear a cowboy hat. Right. And we didn't have the cowboy hat, and I just happened to find one at the Minnesota State Fair.
Yeah.
That I didn't even pay
you
for.
can find anything there.
I know, right? Exactly. Well, I was just like, we were walking past this thing, and I was like, "Oh, that's cool! Look, they got cowboy hats. I'd really love to get a black cowboy hat for our priest character."
Yeah, for my best friend Daniel.
Yeah,
he loves cowboy hats.
Ooh, man, that looks like a cowboy hat he could take a snooze in.
He'd love this one. I appreciate the thought, and I'm gonna pretend that's the real story,
and I'm sticking to it.
But yeah, and then we got boots. From Robert,
yeah.
Cowboy boots, because, we already had the hat. We're like just a natural choice.
Right, and then when we started writing, or when we didn't have anything written about what Stanley would wear, but like as Avery and I were picking stuff out, I mean, luckily we had...
And he just had a look.
Right. Like, I mean, he already, when I picked him, I was like, look at that mustache
Avery
and
had
hair.
a look going, yeah.
Although I looked back at the storyboards, and I drew it a lot like Avery. The only difference was instead of the shaggy hair, he had a mullet.
Oh,
that was
funny.
the only difference was a mullet, but I drew the mustache and everything.
That's funny.
And in the script, he was like a portly dude or whatever.
Sure,
but in the storyboards, I didn't draw him like that.
Yeah.
Which is really interesting to me, that I had changed my mind apparently beforehand.
Right.
Because in the script, it said a portly young Jack Black type.
Right.
I do love that he's shooting the gun like that. Oh, is it because it's broken? Why does he have to shoot the gun like that?
It's just
because the cross just keeps him away if he holds it up?
I think, yeah, he can just keeps him at bay while he's reloading.
Look at that. Look at that practical effect.
Oh,
how
they just don't make bats like they used to.
They don't make bats like they used to.
So good.
I mean, the thing is, you watch a movie like this. When I watch a movie like, I guess, like Avengers, I get where the money goes. I'm trying to think of like what the equivalent to this is in modern
cinema.
Like in modern cinema. Like what's a movie that isn't Avengers huge, but
I mean like a Resident Evil type.
Like a Resident Evil type. You see the movie and I just go like, man, they use so much CG and other stuff. Where did that budget go? I understand CG isn't free.
Right.
But like this, I'm like, wow, man, 50 million. How did they do this with 50 million? Look at all these monsters.
Right? They keep coming, and no two are the same.
No two are the same, Robert.
Now we got the rat boy, the Savini rat boy out of nowhere.
I love it.
Like, they really, vampires is such a loose term in this film.
That's why I actually usually say demons.
Yeah.
I know that they're bats when they fly in, and that's where people get it from.
Right.
But it really has a religious tone between the crosses, between the snake and the dance.
Right.
It does feel like this is the bar from hell.
Right.
Like they've stumbled into Satan's bar.
Sure. Yeah. Great bar name.
Satan's bar. If we open a bar, that's what my if that's
when Satan's bar and grill.
The beer that I used to brew, I used to put Devil's Gravy.
Oh yeah, iconic.
Yeah, Satan's
That was
bar.
gonna be our beer.
You could
Robert has oh boy, what's the name of the beer in this one?
Chango.
Yes. We had Devil's Gravy.
We had Devil's Gravy. We didn't actually use Devil's Gravy at all.
We didn't.
And then in
Still time.
There is time, and they drink throughout all of Greywood's, and I called it Stanley's Sunrises.
You did.
And never put Devil's Gravy on it at all. I totally forgot what happened there. We got to talking, and then all of a sudden he disappeared into a... Oh, yeah, that's right. Okay, now I remember. It's been a while since I've watched this.
Sure, yeah.
When, have you ever watched this movie under any interesting situations?
Well, the last time I saw it, I watched it with my mother-in-law, and she loved it.
Did she?
Yeah.
Your mother-in-law has a weird taste in movies.
She's got a really weird taste in movies. Well, she loves vampire movies.
She does.
Which is a very weird fact about her. Because whatever you imagine my mother-in-law to be, that's who she is. You're absolutely right.
She's a mother-in-law.
She's a mother-in-law.
Right.
But she, loves vampire movies in a weird way. But it's like, yeah, she's hyper-specific. Because you would assume, vampire movies, great. So then we watched Shape of Water. She didn't care for it.
No, really?
Yeah, wasn't a fan. I'm like, okay, fair enough. So I don't really know what her barometer... I'm still gauging Julie's interests, but she loved this movie.
And she was the champion, the proponent for The Good Exorcist as well.
Yeah.
Like, she was sort of...
She and I would watch, really early cuts of the movie, and she loved it from the jump.
Yeah, she was the barometer of feedback for me.
Sure, yeah.
Which was an interesting thing.
Yeah.
Because, I didn't show it to anyone before we watched it, and I learned a terrible lesson from them. I mean, I learned a lesson about... Not terrible. I learned a great lesson.
Yeah.
That I need to watch it with. Don't be so terrible. Don't snooze on those screenings.
Don't snooze on those screenings. Ooh, that's going in your book.
That's chapter 3.
Pro tip number 37.
That's chapter 3 and 7, but 3 is just half of a chapter before I take a snooze and give up on writing it.
That's clever book writing, right
That
there.
is clever book writing. It's going to be an interesting
don't
book.
snooze on those screenings, kids.
I can honestly...
Get your work in front of as many eyes as possible.
We're hitting dawn. We are hitting dawn, everyone.
We started at dusk, and now we are here.
So which is your... from listening to you talk about it, I'm still going to ask the question. Mm-hmm. Which half of this movie do you like more? The first, do you like post-vampire or pre-vampire?
I probably pre-vampire, to be honest.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, that's the opposite, because you just got so into the vampire stuff.
I
was like, there's no way he's going to say post-vampire or pre-vampire, because I love pre-vampire.
Right. There's just a slickness, there's a coolness. It's a little bit tighter. I mean, as much as the vampire stuff is fun,
right?
It's a little sloppy. It kind of goes off the rails, but it still works.
It's amazing and it's so fun to watch, but you could take a beat out of it, and it would be just as strong, if not stronger.
Sure. Yeah.
Well, like I said, I thought that the ending could have been when they attacked the face-off, the four versus the four.
Right.
And then the fact that the movie just continues on.
Right.
After all that, and we get this whole nother batch of vampires, and then another batch.
Yeah. It's like one batch too many.
It's
a new batch.
I will say I wouldn't change anything in it.
No.
It just makes the first half more like enjoyable to me.
Right.
It makes me love the first half even more.
Sure.
But I don't know if I don't think it's worth it. I wouldn't do it any different because I love that second half.
Yeah, it's hard to choose for
Right.
sure. I do love the second half. It's so much fun.
Well, I guess it's
different.
but it's our sentiment. We love character studies.
Yeah.
And that first half is such a character study.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%.
Which is weird because you think we were like action guys based on our sort of background or like what our parents liked. What
we grew
up
up on like 90s action.
We did, which is character study
in a big bad
action.
way. Yeah. I suppose.
Die Hard,
yeah.
Lethal Weapon.
Die Hard,
that's
Lethal
what we used to
Weapon.
watch. Even Tremors is
It's true.
a character study action movie.
Yeah, that's very true. Very true.
Now with movies like even Avengers, it's not really a character study. You know the character before you ever even see it.
Right.
We
There's
know
such
who
a
Captain
built-in-
America is.
Yeah.
Like,
there's such a built-in audience and understanding.
I always, when I see those movies, just hope that they're going to twist it in some ridiculous way. Obviously, they never do.
Right.
But it would be awesome. I mean, that's why Thor Ragnarok worked to me, because it did twist the Thor, like, vibe so much
Right.
that I was just like, wow, this is completely different.
Yep. Definitely. Yeah.
Maybe you told me this before when we started the episode, but when you saw this movie the first time, did you know that this is the direction it was going? Or what were you caught completely off guard? I was caught completely off guard. I had no idea there was vampires at all. I had no idea what it even was. I didn't even know when I saw Michael Parks that he was going to die, that he wasn't a lead character. So
Right. I didn't know where the movie was going the first time I sat down and watched it. And I had seen it in chunks before, and I think I had seen the vampire stuff first. But I think at that point I had just assumed it was two different movies. Like, at that, I mean, honestly. Because Clooney and Tarantino aren't really even that important in the second half. I mean, Tarantino's character dies.
Right.
And Clooney...
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, sorry, y'all. And they don't... It's not really Clooney's journey necessarily once Savini and, everyone else kind of has a bigger role.
Right.
Everyone kind of steps up to the same sort of level of importance.
Well, it just becomes a survival movie. Their actual reason no longer matters.
Yeah,
it
exactly.
Just is a survival movie.
Yeah. So I guess that's
Savini
that's
gets
what I
more
would
play
say.
than anyone.
I would say, like you had said, that's probably why I'm drawn to the first half, is because it's solely story driven.
Yeah.
Whereas the second half, it's not about the story. It's amazing, but it's not the story driven sort of style that the first half was.
Right.
And
that's why I think Once Upon a Time in Mexico has been kind of my go-to favorite Robert Rodriguez movie, and which I recently have sort of changed for Desperado. I've been so into Desperado.
So good. It's so good.
I forgot how fun that movie is.
Right. Oh,
Jenny and I rewatched it, and I was like, oh, this is a comedy. Like, I forgot that this is like a ridiculous, like almost B movie at times comedy. It's like slapstick. And But anyway, I used to love Once Upon a Time in Mexico, and part of that was the fact that that movie's character-driven till the very end. Even in the action, they're having character moments. And, like, Johnny Depp's character completely changes when he loses his eyes. And, like, everything completely just shifts, even in the action sequences.
Yes, yeah. That's another iconic Rodriguez film that just is all about the characters and the stories being told.
I mean, that's him. Spy Kids. My kids have been obsessed with Spy Kids recently.
Sure.
So they got into the Netflix cartoon show, and then from there they got into Spy Kids 1, 2, and 3. And watching Spy Kids with Raffi the other day, it's just a character movie.
Sure,
like, it's kids' characters, but they just let those characters breathe. It's so fun, and just have fun on screen, and especially the first one. I haven't seen the other ones. Okay, here's where my story is.
Oh, yeah.
So Robert actually got this painting done.
Yep.
And he told us about the fact that the titty twister, like, burnt down before they could shoot it and stuff like that. So they did this almost separately from everything.
Oh,
like,
sure,
as a separate idea, and it hangs in Troublemaker Studios. It's fucking huge.
It's huge, yeah.
And so cool.
Giant painting.
It's
and that was kind of his, like, stamp on it, like Robert, the whole Mayan temple sort of, like, bringing that folklore in. Badass.
Yep, so he brought that in based on the fact that there was an original ending, I think, in the script. I think the script had a different ending.
It had a different ending that was just more traditional, like an American vampire take. And he put his stamp on it.
That painting commission.
So great.
It gives the movie a punchline ending that kind of makes it make sense.
Yeah,
like, you're
100%.
instantly like, oh, this is like Aztec lore of, like, whatever.
Yeah,
it mixes multiple ideas.
Yeah, it's like one of those fun little. Yeah, it didn't need to be there, but then the fact that it's there is just the best.
So I guess this is our time for our credit review. I think it's pretty fucking obvious that we love this movie.
Yeah.
Of the Rodriguez films, where does this fall for you? I love that it says Steadicam operator Robert Rodriguez, because he operates his own camera basically at all times. But
I mean, currently it's pretty high. I've watched it so many times recently, and I'm still drawn to it.
And it's inspiration on The Good Exorcist. While it may not seem obvious, it's there in a huge way.
Yeah. Big fan right now. Yeah, probably one of my favorites.
Definitely at my top as well. I would put it on the list, maybe right below Desperado and Once Upon a Time in Mexico, which those movies kind of play as one to me. I know a lot of people are like, it's such a different sequel, it doesn't really feel like it, but they kind of blend to me really well.
Yeah, I would agree with that, for sure.
Obviously, I also have, like, a soft spot in my heart for El Mariachi, just based on the fact that Rebel Without a Crew has become such a huge part of my life.
Yeah, totally.
But I'll say, Rebel Without a Crew, the book, has had way more influence on me and is way more inspirational than the actual movie itself in some ways.
Sure, yeah.
Like, I don't watch it and go like, ooh, I could shoot something like this. Like,
right.
I've been directing for far longer than Robert was directing at the time he made that. So, while I learned things from it, it's more about Robert's process and what he's learned throughout the years and building off of that idea. I would probably rate this number 3 on my Rodriguez list, although I am also a massive fan of The Faculty.
Oh, right. Yeah,
I think that movie is an underrated gem.
My mother-in-law loves that one too.
Does she?
Yeah.
That is
they both, my father and mother-in-law both watched it. After they knew who Robert was, they were finding all of his movies on Amazon and wherever, and that was like one of the next. So she did Dusk Till Dawn, and I think she saw The Faculty next, and they both like loved The Faculty.
Again,
like, all right.
Faculty is a straight up character study that plays off of ideas in The Thing.
Yep.
Plays off of ideas from Body Snatchers.
Yeah.
Like, it has this vibe of that. Plus, it has a massive monster at the end.
Yeah.
That's so fucking cool.
So good.
And Although that is one of the things I like about this is that instead of going with massive monster, a lot of them are. I mean, he takes Tom Savini and turns him into a little rat guy.
Right.
Like it has a kind of a small monsters vibe to it, even though a lot of them are human sized.
Right.
They feel weaker or somehow smaller.
Yeah.
Than,
it's more of like the mass quantities.
Right.
But they're all unique. Like everyone has their own look, which is
it's kind of a Gremlins mentality.
Right.
And I like that's my MO big time. Is like I love the little monsters.
Right. You're a big fan of those little monsters.
I am. That's all I want to do with my life is make little monster movies. Man, really, The Good Exorcist was a little monsters movie, and I snoozed through that whole thing. Snoozed my way to the top.
You sure have.
So anyway, we're wrapping this episode up, and do you have any last words?
Just keep shooting for the stars.
Oh
kids.
my god. Oh my god. I knew that this is how the credits would go. Daniel would say stupid things. Los Hooligans records.
Los Hooligans. No, I don't have anything. I just, I had a good time, and I hope you all did too.
I did. I really enjoyed watching it again and being able to sort of talk through it. One of my hopes is like, I don't know if it's a hope, but there's a vibe in
your hopes up too.
Yeah, right. There's a vibe in this movie of going from one idea to a different idea. That's what everyone talks about when they talk about this movie. And I feel like we maybe do that a little in Grey Woods. I don't know if we exactly do that, but in my head, I was definitely thinking about this movie as I was doing the first half of Grey Woods and the second half. And
True. Our new movie definitely has that same sort of 180 feel to it.
And I hope. Like, I don't.
Yeah.
You never know, but I definitely wasn't.
Time will tell. But yeah, that is funny. The correlation there, because it's definitely prevalent. And you all will tell us, I'm sure, in the future if we
pulled it off in any way or not. I mean, and it's weird because, like, as a filmmaker, I think you think more about it in your head, or I think about it in my head more than it probably.
Yeah.
Because it's an influence. It's not, you want to take something and then do it your own way.
Right.
So, like,
100%.
I just recently watched The Island of Dr. Moreau, and there's a lot of that movie that influenced me, and I didn't even realize it.
Sure.
A huge amount. And I was like, holy shit, I forgot how I hadn't seen the movie since 1999 or 98 or something.
Right.
And I was just like, oh my god, I forgot that I know all of this movie.
Yeah.
I rented it like 10 times. I forgot all about it. Like, that's where Grey Woods came from.
Right.
Are people going to be
by
like
a lot of duds?
Right. Well, because that's my mentality. Isn't I'm not going to make a movie based on what people did right. I'm not watching From Dusk Till Dawn and going, I want to do that.
Right.
Instead, I'm watching something that people didn't like something from, and I'm like, well, this is what they didn't like. I'm going to take that and twist it or do it my own way. Or like Tusk, obviously, was a huge influence on Grey Woods' plot. I did it my way. I didn't try to steal anything. It was just an idea, and he did it his way. And I love Tusk for what it is.
Yeah.
I just knew I had a different story to tell in that body horror story or that world.
Yeah.
All right.
You're doing great, kid.
Oh my God, Daniel's gonna touch me.
Let me shake your hand. Thank you for bringing me on this journey of film excellence.
Until next time.
Again,
I've been Josh.
This is Daniel Degnan.
Don't let your meatloaf, folks.
Okay, bye.